Hello, and welcome back to Radical Disruption. I feel like it has been an eternity since I have recorded a solo episode because I normally batch out my solo episodes. So it'll be a few months before I go about recording again. And this time around, I batched out, I believe, maybe 2.5 months of solo episodes. And then I did about a month and a half, maybe 2 months, I can't remember exactly, of guest episodes. And so it's been like 3 or maybe 4 months since I've actually recorded a solo episode. And I'm going to be completely transparent with you, of course, as always. That's what this podcast is about. I have known that I was going to record this exact episode on this exact topic for about 2.5 months now, and I have been putting it off. I have made up every excuse possible. Last week I was supposed to record this episode and I was like, oh, I don't have time. I need to work on X, Y, Z other thing. And then today I was like, okay, you have to record this episode. You have to do it. I literally cleared my entire schedule just to record this episode so I would have no excuses. And yet here I am making up excuses. I'm like, oh, I need to post on my Instagram stories before I do this podcast episode. And then I'm thinking about the title of this episode and I'm like, canceled? Okay, is it canceled spelled with one L or is it two L's? So then I'm sitting there Googling it and then I'm like, oh, is that the best title for this episode? And I'm like making all these excuses so I do not have to sit down and record this episode, even though I've known for so long that I was going to record this episode. So I don't know why. And here's the thing. You've heard a lot of failures on my end. You've heard a lot of challenges if you've been listening to this podcast. But this one, for some reason, it has felt so different. And it's been about 2.5 months now since this event actually happened. And that's how long, and I would say I'm not like fully even recovered from this, but that's how long it's taken me to sit down and actually be able to pull out lessons, because it was such a painful experience for so long. And I went back and forth for a while when I first went through this experience. And I'm gonna, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm gonna try not to cry. And I'm going to try not to cry throughout this entire episode. I was writing up just a super rough draft, like outline of what I wanted to talk about. And I was crying as I was writing the outline. And I'm like, okay, let's pull it together here. But when it first happened, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to share this. But here I am 2.5 months later. And I'm like, there's so many important things that I think people need to hear. And so many challenges that I think that could be avoided if you listen to this episode. And so I just want to say there's probably going to be some tears. Bear with me. This is something that is very tender, and I'm going to try to explain this in a way that is not confusing, and I'm going to try to keep things clear. I have my outline in front of me, but there might be some tangents that I go off on, and it might not be a perfectly structured episode, but I hope that if you're listening to this, you can take away what you need to hear from this episode. And I also, before I dive into this episode, just want to say that this is going to be a 4-part series. I'm not going to necessarily say like part 1, part 2, but technically this is like a 4-part series of just what the heck has been going on this year behind the scenes in my business, running my business, because it has been the hardest year of running my business. Year 3 has been so hard and so heavy and so many challenges and just things that I would have hoped that I never would have had to experience. I experienced this year. And so I'm going to be sharing, I would say that this is probably the most real and raw next few episodes that you will probably, I don't want to say ever hear on the podcast, but definitely the most real and raw episodes that I have ever shared on this podcast to this date. And if you listen to this podcast, that I've shared a lot of real and raw things. So that's how deep we're going to get on here. And also, I promised myself that I would not re-record these episodes, because sometimes I do that, especially with the episodes where I'm getting really, really deep and transparent. I will re-record and I'll be like, oh, I shouldn't have said this, or oh, that's going to make me look bad if I say this. And I promised myself that I was not going to re-record, and I've already re-recorded twice. I only got 1 minute into the episode when I started re-record, but I'm like, okay, this is it. I'm not re-recording. So again, if this is a little bumpy, if it's a little bit rough, if there's some tears, just bear with me. Okay, now for the episode. you can probably guess from the episode title what this episode is all about, which is my summit. Now, if you're not familiar with Summit, I'll give you a little bit of a, I guess, backstory here. So in March of this year, so in March of 2024, I believe that's when I originally launched it. I opened up ticket sales for an in-person event that I was going to be hosting in Utah. And this idea was something that wasn't born this year. It was actually born prior to having Remy, before I went on maternity leave and all that. I had the desire to do an in-person event. And I actually had people who were asking me in my direct messages to run an in-person event. And I wanted to, but just preparing for having a baby and then maternity leave and all that, I knew I couldn't do it prior to Remy. And then I also knew that I just didn't have the capacity to do it alone. And so fast forward to January, I actually had a conversation with my husband and I's best friends. The girl, her name is Bree, she plans a lot of events. And so that's what she does for her job. And my husband and her husband were just joking around and they were like, oh my gosh, they should do a business together and they should plan an event. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's genius. Why had I never thought of that before? I was like, this is perfect. She's literally the perfect piece of what I need because she has all of like the event planning and all of that experience where I'm like going to be on the more marketing side. And so we ended up partnering. And she's amazing, 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 amazing. And so that idea came to life in January, and then we worked through all the logistics and details and everything. And then in March, we officially launched ticket sales. And we had about 6-month runway to sell those tickets and to plan the event and everything. We're like, okay, this is a really good time frame to do, even just with the two of us. And during this process, obviously, I also had a new baby at the time. So I think in March, Remy would have been, November, December, January, February, March. She was like 5 months old at the time. So still a very new baby. I was still a very new mom. And there are a lot of different things that we were navigating just through motherhood and having a baby in general, if you have a kid. And on top of that, I decided to throw in this event. And I thought that bringing on a business partner would help, and it did. She's amazing, and she 100% pulled all the weight on her end, and I did pull the weight on my end, but I just didn't realize how heavy that weight would be. And so with the prepping and the marketing and the sales, and I'm talking like I built out the sales pages for this, I built out the sales emails, I was selling, I was marketing, and none of that was new to me. But on top of running a business, on top of being a new mom, and on top of just all the other things that were going on in life, it became too much. It became a lot. It was really, really, really heavy for me. I would say about 3 months in. When it was that? March, April, May. So right around like end of May, beginning of June, I started to feel a really, really heavy weight on my shoulders. Not in the sense of I wanted this to be massively successful. Obviously I did, but like the weight of just handling so many tasks. And it got to the point where I was having anxiety attacks. I couldn't sleep. I was up at 1 a.m. and I was paralyzed in my bed, just tears streaming down my face because there was just so much that was going on and I couldn't do any of it well. I couldn't be a mom well. I couldn't run this event well. I couldn't sell tickets well. I couldn't run my business selling my courses and all these other things that I was doing. I couldn't do anything well because I was too spread thin. And so I had these anxiety attacks, and it got to the point where it was affecting my relationships because I was just not myself. I couldn't even function. And I remember shutting the door to my office and just crying so quietly because I didn't want anyone to hear that I was struggling. And on top of that, because of the stress and anxiety, which I didn't know at the time, I was having a lot of health issues. And so one of the things that was happening was I was losing my hair like crazy. And I'm not talking about postpartum hair loss, because this is the point like where postpartum hair loss would have either slowed down or stopped completely. But I was losing my hair in chunks so thick that I would not even put my hair down because I would lose so much hair all over the house that like it was just a disgusting amount. And I started to get blood work done, but my blood work tests came back and they were saying that I was fine, but I was like, I'm not fine. And it actually wasn't until after I canceled the event that everything ended up being okay. And it was just because of the anxiety and the stress of everything that I was having all these health issues. But that's what I was going through. And so I started praying and I was like, I need to figure out what to do. And as a business owner, I know that you can relate to this. It's really hard to give up on something that you believe so deeply in, that you have put time and energy and literally blood, sweat, and tears into something. To think about giving up that event where not only the event was different in the sense of, yeah, I've created offers and I've put time and effort into these offers, and they're amazing offers. Obviously they're great. Go join them right now, they'll change your life. But the in-person event was something that was different in terms of the values that I have of being able to connect with people in person, and I wanted to bring that to life because I know how life-changing that is. And so I just believed in that so deeply. And to be able to even think about quitting or giving that up, I was like, this is absolute insanity, because I've never quit on anything. I've never canceled anything in my business. But it was getting to the point, again, like I was saying, where emotionally and physically in my relationships, like I was not okay. And so I think it was about a month and a half prior to the event taking place, the day of the event, I decided to cancel things. And also, for full transparency, tickets at that time, so like a month and a half out when I decided to officially cancel, tickets were not selling super well. And while I know that I could have I know that the event could have been amazing. And I know that everything would have ended up working out had I continued on with that journey, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. But at that time, I had done literally everything that I could to sell. And I say that very carefully because I'm a believer that there's always more that you could try. And was there something more that I could have tried? Probably yes. But I did things to sell that event and sell tickets for that event that I've never done ever to sell any of my other offers. And it was still such a struggle for me. And I'm talking like I did podcast commercials. I started doing one-on-one reach outs, not like cold messaging people, but like also in a sense cold messaging people, but it was obviously very customized and personalized to that specific person and what their needs were and how I thought that the event would be helpful for them. I started offering personal discount codes to attendees to get them to bring their friends. And that's just to name a few things. And again, tickets were just not selling, which of course just added to my stress and anxiety. And I was just running around a chicken with its head cut off, if I'm being quite honest, trying to figure out how to shift my marketing and selling so that I could make this event successful. And at that point, I had just come to the realization that the event wasn't going to be something that made me any money. I was going to be lucky if I broke even at that time. And so that was like, I just wanted to give you the full context of what was happening at the time. But truthfully, it wasn't the ticket sales that determined whether or not I was going to cancel. That was just another factor that was weighing on me, that was just adding to my anxiety. So I decided to cancel, and I want to share a few different lessons and takeaways on this journey because it was more than just, oh, I canceled. There were a lot of things that I navigated, a lot of lessons that I learned. And so let's dive in. Number one is, I think we think that a lot of times in our business, especially with our offers, when we see our offers as, this thing that we have put so much time and effort into and that we value so deeply, that other people pay attention to it as much as we do. And that's not the case whatsoever. And I don't say that to frustrate you, but it's actually a good thing in a sense. And so when I canceled, very few people noticed that I took down the link to the summit and I disabled it. And I didn't make any sort of public announcement. This is actually the first time that I'm ever talking about this publicly. There's a few people, if you had direct messaged me about the event, I told you what happened and I canceled the event. But this is the first time that I'm actually talking about this publicly. But what I did at the time is I just went into the website, like the sales page for it, and I just turned the page off. So that way when you went to the link, it was like, oh, this page is no longer found. And so that's what I did because I didn't want to publicly announce it at the time because I just couldn't emotionally take on if someone were to have a negative response to that, I just knew that I emotionally would not be able to handle that. And so I knew that I needed to wait until I was at a time where emotionally I could handle that. And of course, obviously, my community is amazing. And I know that majority of the people are going to have only a positive response and be so supportive. But I just had to think about, even if there was one message that would have messed me up at the time just because I was not in the right mental space. And so I just took down the link and I disabled it, and there were only 18 people. I counted because I was so interested in seeing how many people would notice. 18 people to be exact either emailed me or direct messaged me saying, hey, I'm trying to sign up for the summer. Hey, I want to look at the sales page, but this link says that it's disabled. And of course, I told them at the time what had happened, that I canceled the event because of my own mental health, and everyone was really, really nice about it. But that lesson to me was that people don't pay as much attention as we think. And this realization actually gave me a lot of peace because I was really worried. I don't even want to say I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'm in the process of recovering from people pleasing. It is something that I really, really struggle with. And I know that a lot of other entrepreneurs struggle with. And I was really worried about what people would think about me if they knew that I had canceled this summit. And so that realization that not a lot of people noticed was actually really refreshing for me. And just knowing that I didn't need to carry the weight of what others might think about every single decision, and realizing that not everyone notices every single detail like I do because I'm the one that's in my business and the day to day. You know what I'm saying? So that was really, really huge. The next lesson is paying attention to your body when it's showing you signs that you need to slow down. My body at the time, and I recognized that something wasn't right, but I didn't recognize what the actual issue was. And looking back, it was so, so, so clear. I mean, I'm talking like between panic attacks and not being able to sleep at night and cry, like all of those things should have been telltale signs for me. But just realizing that our bodies are so smart, and my body was literally telling me, you need to slow down. And I'm sure that if I hadn't have slowed down, it would have gotten to the point where my body would have made me slow down. And I'm just grateful that I didn't get to that point. But there were a lot of signs along the way. And so just really paying attention to your body and what it's telling you was another big lesson for me. Now, this is the hardest part for me. When it came to the decision of canceling the summit, it was really hard because I knew that it would come at a high cost. So I lost over $20,000 just by canceling the event. And the biggest losses were actually because of speakers that didn't return their speaker payments. And all of the speakers were people that I had considered as friends at the time. And I don't want to say that not some people did return payment, some people didn't. And I don't hold a grudge. I don't hold any grudge on anyone, whether they returned or whether they didn't return. Well, obviously, if they returned, I didn't hold a grudge. But even if they didn't return the money, I didn't hold a grudge, and I have zero judgment towards them or ill will. I think that they're amazing, amazing human beings and individuals. But I had hoped that maybe there'd be a gesture of goodwill, especially as this was just such a dark time in my business and in my life. And they knew the struggle that I was going through because I was a lot more transparent with them. But they were under no obligation to return payments because I didn't have anything in my contract requiring refunds in the event of cancellation. So that was on me for not having an airtight contract. But at the end of the day, you can't expect of others what you would do, which is sad, but it was a really important wake-up call for me. So while it was a tough but valuable lesson about preparing for every possibility, especially when it comes to the legal and financial protections, it was really disappointing. And like I said, this was the hardest thing for me to navigate when it came to the cancellation, was just how certain people handled the situation. And it was not the way that I would have handled the situation. But again, it's not on them because it's on me for not having that in my contracts. And so just an important reminder to always protect myself in my business, no matter how friendly or how trusted the connections might feel. And it was a very, 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 very expensive lesson. Obviously, $20,000. It was actually more than $20,000, but we'll just say $20,000. very expensive lesson, very difficult lesson that I had to learn. So please learn from my mistakes and make sure that your contracts and terms of use are airtight no matter who you're going into business with or who you're bringing into your offers. Like, it doesn't matter if you're hosting an event or not. Like, you need to have contracts and terms of use and make sure that they are done right. And the thing is, like, if I hadn't canceled my event, my contracts were great and there would have been no issues, but I just didn't include a clause that if I canceled, that the funds had to be returned. I did include a clause that if the speaker canceled for whatever reason, they couldn't make it, that funds had to be returned, but I didn't include that clause if I had canceled. And admitting to this honestly makes me feel like an idiot because it's such a stupid mistake. And this far into business, I 100% should know better. And looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, literally one sentence, okay, probably not just one sentence, one paragraph added to that contract would have saved me that like tens of thousands of dollars. And I should have known better, but here I am. So learn from me. And also something I want to mention here is that I knew that by canceling that I would lose a lot of money because I had already looked at the contracts. I already knew that the speakers didn't have to return payments. Of course, I hoped that they would return payments, but also I knew that they didn't have to because they were not contractually bound. But I had also lost thousands in down payments for like food and drinks and the venue and audio and video and all the things that I had already paid for, at least down payments for the event that I couldn't get back. And so I lost that as well. So like I knew going into the decision of canceling that I would lose a lot. So a huge part of my decision on whether or not to cancel was weighing the cost. And I don't just mean the monetary cost, but also the emotional cost and the cost of my relationships. And I knew that I could run a very successful and amazing event, whether I sold 25 tickets or whether I sold 100 tickets, but at what cost to my mental health and to my relationships. And I ultimately decided that the cost of continuing, of running that event and going through with it was more than the cost of canceling. Because I know that if I had continued on down that road, that whether that be my mental health, whether that be more money lost, which is totally a possibility, depending on how many tickets were sold or how many tickets were not sold. And like there were a bunch of costs that we didn't even get into when it came to planning that definitely could have, been greater than even $20,000. But I was thinking about the cost of my health and being able to be a good mom and a good wife and just being able to be healthy as a human being. So that was, I would say, the biggest and hardest thing that I had to navigate was just weighing that cost of, again, not just the monetary cost. Is it worth continuing or is the cost of canceling less? So that was huge. Now, the next lesson, which I don't even really know if this is a lesson, but I guess this is just something that I experienced. So as I was marketing for the summit, my marketing efforts were so intense because I was struggling to sell tickets and I wanted to sell tickets. And so I was trying all these different things. And those marketing efforts took away from marketing efforts in other areas of my business. And so my income dropped. And I'm talking not just like, oh, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000. I'm talking like $25,000. And it makes sense. And again, there's no one to blame but myself. But because I was spending so much time marketing the summit and the summit wasn't bringing in any money because tickets weren't selling, I wasn't marketing things that were making money in my business. So technically, I also lost money because of that as well. And so I also, too, at the time, during the, I would say around like 4 to 5 months between, I'm trying to think of the exact, let's see, March, April, May, June, July into mid-August, I also stopped posting a lot because I just mentally, I just couldn't. Again, my capacity was at max. I just could not. And so I didn't have the visibility. Again, I wasn't marketing my offers. And so all of that also impacted, I guess, just the entire year in general. I am currently in the process right now of just trying to recover from that. And it takes a lot to recover from that because business is a lot about momentum. I didn't intentionally do this, but like looking back, I definitely could have done something different for sure. Of course, hindsight 2020. But I basically put my other business, so pretty much everything except for Summit, I just put it on the shelf and I was like, hopefully you're okay. Hopefully you just figure it out. And that stopped my momentum. And it has been really, really, really hard to build that back up. And so, and again, big lesson there is just like you have to, and I'm not saying to burn yourself out, and I'm not saying to not take care of yourself, because this whole entire episode is all about taking care of yourself and how it's more important to take care of yourself than it is to make money and to continue in your business. But also at the same time, momentum is a huge, huge part of success. So just recognize that if you do go through this time of, maybe you do need to take a pause on your business, like come back with realistic expectations that it's not going to unpause in the same place that you paused it in. And that has been really hard for me because I just thought, oh, once I'm done with Summit, I'll just, now I'm done with that. I canceled it. Now I'm just going to put all my efforts back in my marketing with all the things that I was doing before, which was working really well. It was working really, really well for me. It hasn't been working the same. And so that has been it's been really, really hard. And that's something I'll talk about in the next episode, actually, a lot more. So there's that. Now I want to talk a little bit more about like how the actual canceling process came about, how I did all that, because there were some lessons that I learned in that as well. One of, I would say, the biggest fear that I had with cancellation, outside of the people pleasing, I'd say this is definitely the number one fear though, was hurting my relationships with the attendees who were already planning on going, because nothing means more in my business than my people. My community, I know that I would be nowhere. I would not have a business without my people. And for all the people who were attending the summit, I know that those people believed in me. They believed in my vision so much so that they were willing to pay, I don't even remember how much tickets were, over $1,000. I think it was $1,000 to $1,600. That's a lot of money. And I don't take that lightly by any means. And so that was, I would say, the biggest anxiety that I had when it came to canceling was that it wasn't the amount of money that I was going to lose. I would say long term, the amount of money that I lost was the biggest thing that I had to navigate just like mentally, just because that was something that was long lasting. Whereas once I canceled, it canceled. You get what I'm saying? But anyways, that was really, really hard for me. But all the attendees, every single person was so nice about the cancellation, and they were so understanding and just honestly angels on high at that time. And I remember opening emails, just like people who had replied to the email that saying that it was canceled, and just the amount of love and support, I was crying. And it was just a reminder that there are good people out there. And when you take the time to take care of your people and to build a community, those people have your back, which was so refreshing and such a huge blessing to me at that time where there was so much stress and anxiety around canceling. But in terms of how I went about canceling, so I sent out an individual email to every attendee and speaker. Like individually, I went out and I wrote those to make sure that it was very, very personal. And it did take me a lot of time. It took me a few hours to go about doing all of that. But I really did want it to be personal. I didn't want it to be like this mass email to everyone of like, hey, I've canceled, and it's this super generic. I did send that out individually. And then for attendees, I said in the email that their refund of any payments that had been made. So some people were on payment plans, some people had paid in full. Just anything that they had paid would be returned to them by the end of the week, which I think I sent it out on a Monday or Tuesday. And so I had 3 or 4 days to send them or to give them back their payments. And then also, of course, cancel any payments moving forward if they were on a payment plan. And then I also shared in that email too that I would reimburse them for any travel expenses that they couldn't cancel or get either a refund or credit for, just because I knew that some people had booked flights and like hotels and all that. And sometimes you can't depending on like airlines and everything, you can't get money back. And I didn't want anyone to be financially impacted by the cancellation. And so there were, I would say, about like $1,200 worth of reimbursements that I gave out just for people who were not able to cancel. Um, and then I also let people know about the truth of canceling, but I didn't fluff it up, meaning that I shared why I canceled and the truth about why I canceled, which is my mental health. And I let them know that I was so grateful for their support. And then I just left it at that. And I think that in situations like this, so many people over explain because of that people pleasing tendency, and they apologize like 500,000 times, and it's just not necessary. Yes, be kind and be courteous and let people know how grateful you are for them and make amends with them, but also not everyone needs to know the entire story, every single little bitty detail about what's going on, in order for it to be okay, if that makes sense. And so just give it, even if you're like, hey, I'm going to write out an email. I do this sometimes. I write out an email. I didn't do this for the summit email, but sometimes I do this for other emails. I'll write out the email and I'll be like, paste it into ChatGPT. And I'm like, okay, can you take out all the fluff and all the over explaining and apologies and just make this really sincere and friendly, but straight to the point? And I actually had an email that I sent out. I'm trying to think when this was. I think it was for Autopilot Empire earlier this year. I had to reschedule the call because I and also my family were deathly ill at the time. I couldn't even talk. I couldn't even get off the couch. And I sent out just a really super direct like email. And I was like, I'm sorry that this happened. This is when the date is rescheduled. I was just like, very direct and to the point. And I had someone who responded to that email and they're like, wow, this was the permission slip that I needed in my business to not over explain. It was just super direct and to the point. And she was like, this is amazing. So anyways, that's just your permission slip that you don't need to give people every single detail. Oh, well, I canceled because of this and this. And I hope that, blah, blah, blah. And just get direct and to the point. Again, of course, be kind, be courteous, but you don't need to give people every single detail. Also, in terms of cancellation, like I was saying prior, it was about a month and a half prior to the date. So it gave people time to adjust their plans. They didn't have to, within a day, go and cancel their flight plans. Most people did within the week time period after I sent out the email of canceling, but they had time, if that makes sense. And so that was important. If it had gotten any closer, if it was a month or even just under a month, I don't know exactly what I would have done, obviously, because I've never made it to that situation, but I don't think that I probably would have canceled just because of people's plans and having to readjust plans in that short amount of time. So that was another thing too, I had thought about the decision to cancel for about, I would say about a month and a half realistically prior to actually canceling. That's how much time I spent thinking about it and praying about it and trying to decide what I was going to do, because I was struggling. I was going back and forth 100,000 times and thinking through every single possible outcome and decision and all that inside my head. But I knew that like about a month and a half out, that's when I was going to have to start paying in full, like instead of just the down payment for like my venue and everything, I was going to have to start paying, or I had payments that were coming up to pay in full for all those things. So that was a huge, obviously, motivator to figure things out. But also I wanted to make sure that I gave my people enough time to adjust plans. Now, in terms of my business partner, how I went about canceling, we're friends. So I just hopped on a call with her and I let her know what's going on. Poor gal listening to me. I was literally bawling my eyes out. She probably couldn't even understand what I was saying. I was crying so hard, but she was super understanding. Just an angel on high. She helped me get everything on the event side canceled, which was a huge blessing, and no ill will or anything on that end, which was really, really nice. So I would say overall, there were a lot of tender mercies throughout this journey. Of course, it was still hard, but I was very, very grateful for that. Now, another lesson, and I would say this was probably the second biggest lesson. First biggest lesson, contracts. Make sure that they're airtight. Protect yourself. Second biggest lesson was this. So prior to canceling the event for about a week and a half, I consulted with a lot of people that I look up to in my personal life, but also in business. And I was just seeking advice from them. I was like, if you were in my situation, what would you do? And obviously everyone has very, very different opinions, but I reach out to someone that I trusted for guidance. And I had hoped that they would offer a balanced perspective, but I came to realize that their advice was just influenced by their own interests. And they strongly encouraged me to keep going, to keep selling tickets, to try. They gave me a list of all these other things to go out and try. And of course, they knew the context of what was going on in terms of my mental health. And they knew the context. And still, their advice was based off of their own interest, which was really, really hard. And so ultimately, of course, I decided to follow my gut and cancel the event, knowing that that was the best choice for me. Was it the best choice for everyone at the time? No, definitely not. But it was the best choice for me. And unfortunately, this decision, me making the decision to cancel, ended up burning that bridge with that person, which was, it was painful, but it was really, really revealing. And it was a huge lesson to me that if someone were to come to me for advice, whether that's me as their one-on-one coach or even just as their friend, how important it is to support them no matter what their decision is, but also obviously get context for the situation and be able to give my advice, but also letting them know as well that they need to do what is best for them, and just not having like my advice influenced by my own interest, if that makes sense. Like trying to take myself out of the situation and almost be like that, what is the word I'm looking for? I guess middle ground, where it's just I'm not swaying one way or the other way based off of like my own experience. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but it was just a really important moment for me as a coach to take that step back and be like, okay, this is what I never want to do, or even just as a friend, and even just as a spouse, this is what I never want to do in a situation where someone is coming to me seeking advice, because of how painful that was. Because of course, this was someone that I looked up to and that I trusted for guidance, and it ended up burning that bridge down. And so there's no longer that relationship there, which is really, really, really sad. But also, again, there was a big lesson there. So I don't know. Trust your inner voice is what I'm saying. Even if that leads you to make a tough decision, and even if that decision is not what other people may have recommended for you or given you guidance on, and just know that the people that you went to seeking guidance, even if you make a decision that's different than what they say, if they really have your best interests at heart, and if they really love you, then they're going to continue supporting you. I'll leave it at that. Okay, the next thing, this is an interesting one, and I've actually thought about this probably at least once a week since I've canceled. So I talked about in a previous podcast episode, I think it was talking about failed launches and like how to navigate failed launches. I talked about how I wasn't going to give up on selling summit tickets, and I was just going to keep going and persevering. And I look back now and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish that I had not said that in that episode, because here I am talking about how I did cancel. But again, lessons to be learned here. And again, honestly, looking back, I wouldn't change anything, but I'm just like, well, you live and you learn. But I, prior to canceling, had heard someone say, and I think it was either in an Instagram post or in a caption of an Instagram post, they said that they wouldn't hire someone who had never quit something. And I was like, oh, when you see things, whether that's a little phrase or even, a video, and it just is ingrained in your brain. And not to say that you think about it every single second of every single day, but like it's one of those things that just keeps coming up, even if you didn't screenshot it. I didn't screenshot. I don't even know who posted this thing. I don't even remember. It was like months and months and months ago. But it's just one of those things that just keeps coming up. I don't know if you've ever had that, but that's how this little like saying, I don't even know if it's saying, but thought saying that you wouldn't hire someone who has never quit something. So that's been at the back of my brain. And I just thought it was such an interesting concept, and it sat with me for a long time, because as business owners, we are told to not give up, to not quit, to persevere, to keep going. Like even in that failed launch episode, I was like talking about, if you have a failed launch, keep going and keep trying these things. And I do believe that is necessary for certain situations. And so I think that this concept really threw me off. And I was like, what? What do you mean you would never hire someone who has never quit something? Because I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I only want to hire people who are like dedicated and determined and they persevered even when they had all these trials. But now I understand. Now I get it. Because quitting the summit, canceling the summit, it meant prioritizing myself and my family. And that's what I want to be known for. And at the end of the day, I can't pour from an empty cup. And if I want to show up and make an impact, it starts with being the person that I need to be and filling my cup first. And I would never want any of my clients, if you came to me and you were in this exact situation, I guess prior to me canceling and you were asking for advice, I would never want you to think that you can't quit something. And so it was just a really big perspective shift for me of, yes, there are certain times when quitting is bad and you should persevere, but also quitting is not a bad thing, which again, like hearing me say that out loud, I don't think that had I never had this experience, would have ever said that. But I think that there's so much power in quitting because, not all the time, in certain situations, and in this one, there was a lot of power in quitting because it meant that I was prioritizing myself and also preparing myself for something that was better. And there are times where you're going to have to quit something to either take a chance on yourself or because you know that there is better opportunities ahead. And it made me think about when I very first started my business. I never thought about it in this way, which I don't know why. But when I very first started my business, I was actually doing network marketing at the same time. And I quit network marketing. I quit. And it's a very, 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 obviously very different scenario than me canceling the summit, but also not at the same time. And so when I quit network marketing, it was me leaving something that was good for something that could be better. And I'm so grateful that I was willing to quit something and to not be afraid to quit, to take a chance on myself, because I would not be here today. I would not be recording this episode for you to listen had I not quit network marketing. And so it just made me think about all these different scenarios in my life where I have quit something and it's been a good thing. And again, I'm not saying that every situation is good to quit. If you're having a bad day, please do not quit. That is not at all what I'm saying. Or if you're having a failed lunch, please do not quit on that offer. But there are certain situations where it is good. And I just think that it gives you, I don't even know if the right word is qualities, but it does build you up in a different way when you leave something behind for something either new or something better or something different. And so, am I saying that you should hire me because I've quit something? That is not at all what I'm saying. But it does give me a different perspective now when I am looking to hire someone where I'm like, have you ever been in a situation where you've had to choose and where you have had to either give up something for something better or give up something to prioritize yourself? Because that is something that I want. I want to be able to always recognize when either there is something better out there or be able to recognize that I need to prioritize myself or I need to prioritize my time or prioritize my family or prioritize my, like, whatever it is. Like, I want to be able to recognize that. And like, I want to develop that skill where I know when enough is enough. And for the summit, looking back, because I had all of those signs, they were so clear looking back. I could have canceled the summit so many months earlier and saved myself so much pain and stress. But I was determined. I was like, I'm not going to quit. I don't want to be seen as a quitter. But now, totally different perspective of it's okay. So, anyways, I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like spinning out random nonsense here, but just something to think about. Even just think about just that concept of that you wouldn't hire someone who has never quit something. Just think about that. Okay, now, What else? What else do I have for you? Oh, big picture. Big picture of this year's challenges, because I think that that's something else that definitely plays into every situation, is you never know what is going on behind the scenes. And I was actually just having a lunch with Rachel Kitto, that's her last name, not Kiddo, she's a kid, Rachel Kitto, the other day. And she is the founder of Cozy Confidence Co. And they're like curl bands that you can put in your hair. She's amazing, amazing, amazing. One of the most beautiful people inside and out that I've ever met in my entire life. If you don't follow her on Instagram, go follow her. But we were having a conversation and I asked her, I was like, what is your story? I was like, how did you get to where you are today? And just like her talking, I think she was telling me the story for 15, 20 minutes. And my jaw was just on the ground, because on social media, you don't see everything that is going on behind the scenes. And it's one thing to see a post that on Instagram, a reel, and I've posted these reels before too. And obviously it's done with the best intention, but it's one thing to see a reel that says, remember that Instagram is a highlight reel and you don't know all the things that are going on. It's so easy to look at that and be like, oh yeah, of course. But do you actually deeply realize that there's so much going on behind the scenes? And I don't even just mean like the negative stuff that's going on behind the scenes, but like just situations and experiences that you just don't even know. And you're sitting here comparing yourself to Susie or to Joe or to Karen. I don't even know. You're comparing yourself to all these other people and you don't even know what's going on behind the scenes. And again, I'm not just talking about the negative stuff, but I'm talking about maybe Susie doesn't have 2 kids and she can work her business 12 hours a day, and you're comparing yourself when you only have 2 hours a day. There's just so much that is going on behind the scenes that you just don't know. And so that's where this is coming from, is just really revealing the curtain. That's what this whole entire series is about, is there's so much that has gone on this year that I'm ready to now reveal, but throughout this entire year, it would be so easy. Go look at my Instagram account. It would be so easy, and same with my Instagram stories, to look at my journey and my life and be like, oh my gosh, it's perfect. I wish that was me. Like Maya, she never struggles. She never has any problems. Oh my gosh, I wish that was the case. But if you go look at my Instagram account, that's the vibe that you're going to get from it. And it's because Instagram is a highlight reel. It is designed to be that way. And that's why I created my podcast, because I wanted to pull back the curtain. But I just want you to know that like you're not alone in all the things you're going through, and stop comparing yourself to Susie or Joe or whoever it is, because you do not know what is going on behind the scenes. And so with all that being said, this year has been a lot. So on top of Summit and deciding to cancel and all that whole entire spiel that I just gave you for the last 50 minutes, I was navigating someone who made $65,000 off of reselling a copy of my offer. I was losing out on our dream property. So that's a whole nother story for another day, but I'll give you the Spark Note version. But we put under contract a piece of property, and then it ended up not being what we thought that it was going to be, and so we backed out. But now we're like, we have no idea where we want to live, because that's been our dream for the last 3 years. So that was a whole other thing. Postpartum depression, another thing that I've been navigating. We had a huge investment loss in another business, which I'm actually going to talk about in an upcoming episode, so buckle up. If you thought this episode was a lot, that one's gonna be mind-blowing. Okay. Lack of sleep due to having a baby, which, I always like to compare lack of sleep to being drunk and trying to run your business. That's literally how it is. I don't even know. There are some days where I'm like, I don't even know how I functioned. So that's another thing. Navigating huge tech issues, which caused me to lose 20 hours of work, which is like, that's a lot. I've never had any sort of tech issues. Okay, I've had tech issues. Let me take that back. And also let me knock on wood right now. I'm like, please, no more tech issues. But this year, in year 3, I've had more tech issues and I've lost so many hours of work. And that has been really, really, really hard. I lost a relationship with a mentor when that mentor did something that was super disrespectful and uncalled for during a time when I was super vulnerable. Oh, and also just trying to be a new mom and a wife and keep my household together and not burn the house down. To say that this year has been a doozy is an understatement. It has been extremely, extremely, extremely hard. And at the end of it all, of course, I'm here to give you the sunshine at the end of the storm because that's what I always have to give you the positive. And I just want to say, though, going back to what I said at the very beginning of this episode, it has taken me almost 2.5 months now to be able to find the sunshine in the storm because it's been hard. And so if you're in it and you're like, there's no way there can be any sunshine, keep going. I promise that there is sunshine. There is your little gold pot at the end of the rainbow. You're going to find that, I promise. So just want to say that where it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's taken me a long time to get to this point. But this year has given me a lot of clarity. It's given me a lot of clarity about my values, about my boundaries, and how crucial, wow, that word is hard, it is to protect my own peace, even if the cost is high in the short run, because nothing is more valuable than my health. Because if my cup isn't full, then I can't do anything well. I can't be a good mom. I can't be a good wife. I can't be a good friend. I can't be a good business owner. And so I need to fill my cup first. And I hope that from this episode, you take away lessons about trusting yourself and valuing your boundaries and understanding that sometimes the most hard decisions are the ones that we need to make. So, with all that being said, thank you for listening to this episode. Tune into the next episode in this kinda series, but not series, on pulling back the curtain of this year. I'm going to talk in the next episode about hitting rock bottom.